everybody, welcome back, and this is an RSA, a retro service announcement. Normally I would call these PSAs, and I have in the past, public service announcement, but I thought retro service announcement kind of fit the theme better, but anyway. In this video series I talk about products that are coming out that I feel are something you guys should check out, that you might be interested in, that the retro community can, benefit from as a whole. And, and today I want to talk about something I am really excited about. I found out about this just a couple of weeks ago, but I just sat there and read about it for probably a good hour and really absorbed all the information, and I was stoked. But what I'm talking about is a company called HD Retrovision. Now, some of you guys may already have heard of these guys because it's kind of flying around Facebook at the moment, but I've only seen really a few people talking about it on YouTube, and I kind of really want this to saturate the YouTube community and get people informed about this to check it out. And what these guys do is they make AV cables for retro consoles. And you might be thinking, so what? Lots of people make AV cables for retro consoles, they're everywhere. But not like what these guys are doing. What these guys are doing is they're taking an existing, what you might think of as a higher end option, and they've simplified it and actually made it less expensive too. And I will get into that later, but first I want to go back to what most aftermarket AV cables are, and that's composite. They are composite video, which on a whole is very crappy video quality, to be honest with you. But that's what we've had to deal with in the US. And the reason it's crappy is because video makes up a lot of separate components. There are a lot of separate components to a video signal. And when you're sending those across one small conductor, it leads to a lot of problems which, without getting technical, you end up with a poor image quality. Now, if you hop across the pond, they had RGB at the time, which is vastly superior to composite. Much better image quality. And so what these guys are doing is they're taking that RGB signal that's actually output by a lot of these older consoles, and inside of their cable is a little PCB, a little circuit board, and what it is a transcoder, and it's converting that RGB signal into component, which is on any modern TV, and even a lot of old CRTs have component, and it's one of the best. Well, it is the best analog video cable you can get as a component cable. It doesn't get better than that as far as analog video goes. So, I mean, it's just vastly superior because as the name would imply, it breaks that video signal up into components and across separate cables, and just gives you a much better image quality. So what these guys are doing is they've opened a Kickstarter, and this Kickstarter is starting with two consoles, the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo is what they're starting with. Now they're going to have two cables for the Genesis, one for the Model 1 and one for the Model 2. So we're covering all the Genesis models here. So that's three cables. Now when I saw this Kickstarter go online, I sat there and waited for November 1st, and I was one of the first people to back it because I'm so excited about this. And I paid $105 and backed for all three cables. So that means I'm getting a Model 1 Genesis cable, a Model 2 Genesis cable, and a Super Nintendo cable. Now, you can do math. That's $35 a cable. And I'm sure some of you might be going, well, that's expensive. But when you look at the options, it's not. I mean, I'm not even going to compare this to a composite cable because it's just garbage. It's not a fair comparison. Just throw composite out of it. If you're fine with composite, then, I don't know what to say. I'm not going to convince you otherwise if that's fine with you. But you may reconsider after you watch the comparison videos. But anyhow, let's look at your options. What's your next upgrade up from composite? Well, that's going to be S-Video. S-Video is actually pretty decent. It breaks that signal up into and sends it across different conductors, but it's still one wire. You're still going to have issues with crosstalk, with interference. There's still going to be issues. The image quality isn't quite as good, and it's not a very widely used interconnect, so it really didn't get a ton of support in the first place. And I dare you, just go look on your HD TV. You're not going to find S-Video on it. It's not supported very well. So there's your first problem with S-Video. Your next problem with S-Video is if you have a Genesis, it does not output S-Video. You will have to modify it. And to do that, you'll have to either send it to somebody, and the cheapest I've seen people doing it is around between $40 and $50 at the cheapest. Now, if you have the soldering skills and know what you're doing, you can do it yourself, but it's really a pain in the ass. I have those skills. I could do it if I wanted to. I don't want to. I would rather, I want something I can just plug in and play. I don't want to have to deal with that. But now, what about Super Nintendo? Super Nintendo outputs S-Video natively. Great! But the aftermarket cables, 99% of them are crap. I've only seen a few that were even half decent. Now you can get a first-party cable, but it's $40. $5 more than these cables, and it still isn't going to look as good. So there's your next best option. Up from that is the option I was talking about that's kind of more high-end, and that is actually RGB SCART. So you get one of these cables, and this is a SCART cable. This is a SCART connection. This is what they have in Europe. A lot of TVs have this. You might find a couple over here. If you're really lucky, you might find a TV with this over here, but chances are you won't. So basically, what this does is it takes that native RGB signal and sends it over this SCART cable. But how do you connect this into your TV? What good does this do for you? Well, you have to get a converter. So this basically takes that SCART connection and converts it to a component, just like what these cables do. And you're thinking, well, we've already got an option there. Well, yeah, but this cable's $20 by itself. There are cheaper cables, but I warn you, cheap. I went through two of them before I realized they were crap, and bought this $20 cable, which is much better. I won't go into the details, but I'll just say the cheapest you're going to find a good cable for is about $20. So okay, $20, but these are $50. $50 for this, so $70 here. So you've paid for two cables with this one setup. And here's the big problem. This isn't plug and play. I had to adjust the potentiometers in this to get the right colors. The colors were so vastly oversaturated that it looked sickening. It was gross to look at. But I mean, once I adjusted, it looked fine. So it's not plug and play. Plus, this requires its own separate power supply to work. It's really not a viable option for most people. It really isn't. And then you have to have multiple ones of these for your systems. You have to have multiple cables. I mean, it's just complicated, and I just don't think it's your best bet. So basically, the cables these guys are selling takes all of this and puts it in one cable that's just, you plug it in, that's it. There's no power supply, there's no adjustment, it just works. So yeah, and it's a heck of a lot cheaper. Now, next step up is an upscaler. Now, let's get one thing straight. These cables from HD Retrovision do not upscale. They do not upconvert. They don't do anything like that. They don't take the 240p signal from your Genesis or your Super Nintendo and make that 720p or 1080p. It's not going to do that. It's not going to make that signal HD. All it's doing is converting RGB to component, which is giving you a better picture quality, no question, but it is not upconverting. And let me be clear, neither does this. This is also just a converter. If you want to upscale, you're going to have to get something like the Framemeister XRGB Mini, which is about $400. $400. And you're still going to have to get these. You still need these because, let's be honest, you could use composite, but it's garbage in, garbage out, guys. You're still going to get a crappy image. It's just going to be upscaled to 720p. So yeah, you're still going to have to spend 70 bucks on that. So you're spending nearly $500 versus getting something for 35 bucks. I mean, granted, it's not going to be upscaled, but really, is it worth spending more for that? I don't think so. But we'll get into that a little bit more in a second here. Now, I've explained to you the options versus their cable, and having looked at that, I think that $35 is very reasonable for what this cable is going to offer you. Now, I've got links down below to the Kickstarter, to their website, to their blog that has all these all this technical stuff you can look over, but most importantly, there's a link to some videos that will compare the difference between composite and the component cables for these systems. And you are going to be blown away by the difference on the Genesis, because the Genesis has terrible component output. It's really bad. So the difference is huge. The clarity is huge. It has better color reproduction as well as contrast ratio. So the Genesis cables are a no-brainer. The Super Nintendo, not so much. The Super Nintendo has great composite output for composite, but there's still a good improvement in clarity, and there's still better color reproduction and better contrast ratio. Now, here's the other value of these cables. They work with more than one system. If you buy the Model 1 cable, it will work with a Model 1 Master System as well as your Model 1 Genesis and a 32X if you have it with the Model 1 Genesis. But you need the proper cabling that comes with the 32X for it to work. Now, it won't work on the Model 2 Master System because the Model 2 Master System only has RF output, but it works for two separate systems. Now, if you get the Model 2 cable, it will work on the Genesis 2, it will work on the 32X, it'll work on the Nomad, it'll work on the CDX, and it will work on the JVC XI. I mean, all those systems with one cable. Now, unfortunately, the Super Nintendo cable only works on the Model 1 Super Nintendo. And that's because the rest of them don't output RPG. The SNES Mini, the N64, and the GameCube do not output RGB. If you have a PAL GameCube, it does output RGB over the analog output, but all the NTSC consoles do not. However, if you have an AV Famicom, an SNES Mini, or an N64, and you've modded them for RGB, this cable should work for those. So that's always a great option. Now, that being said, let's say that the Super Nintendo and the Genesis aren't even on your radar, you don't collect for them, you just don't care. There's still a reason for this to be important for you, because if these guys can see that there's a demand for these cables and that people want them, they're going to make cables for other systems as well. And they have on their website, there's a list of systems that they're looking into doing next if this takes off. And one of those is the GameCube component cable. You know, the one that's $180 to $200? I mean, I have one. I paid $80 for it. And at the time I was like, are you insane, Clint? $80 for a cable. Now it's $180 to $200. It's nuts. Because there's no option because of the little proprietary decoder chip inside of it that takes the digital signal from the GameCube, decodes it, and converts it to an analog signal and sends it out over component. These guys are actually in the process of looking into that and reverse engineering that chip and making an affordable cable for people. They're even looking at a more affordable option for an upscaler. I mean, so these guys are looking into different cables, upscalers, I mean, all sorts of things that would be very useful to the retro community if we can show that there's support for it. So go to the Kickstarter. Even if you don't want these cables, you can throw in $1. You can get a shirt. I mean, whatever. You know, donate a little bit of money to these guys and let's get this thing taken off. I mean, I think they're already up to $16,000, and there's still 25 days to go. And we just need to get to 24,000, and this thing will be funded. And so I'm just really excited about this, and I hope that you guys are too. Please check out the links below, check out the information. I think that you'll really be interested in this, and hopefully you guys donate or well, back it. And you know, I just can't say how excited I am about this, and hope that I can get the word spread. And if you have a YouTube channel and this does interest you, please do a video on it, because I don't have a lot of subscribers. It would be great if we can get some of the larger channels to get the word out there, so people that are interested in this will back it, and we can really get the word out. But anyhow, I've rambled on about this long enough. If you've got any questions, please leave them down below. I've read everything on this, and I can answer any question that you guys have. Leave any comments you have down below, and once again, I hope this has been helpful to you guys. I hope you guys are interested in it. Check out the links. But thanks for tuning in, and hopefully I'll be seeing you with the next video this weekend, which should be the Genesis walkthrough. I know that should have been last weekend, but work has just been really tough this past couple of weeks. So yeah, I will try to get to that, but thanks for tuning in, guys, and I will see you with the next video.